At first, it felt real, electric, like the beginning of a story you'd waited your whole life to live. They pulled you in with intensity, charm, maybe even moments of deep emotional vulnerability. But over time, their texts grew colder, their presence more distant, their promises vague, slippery, and you began to wonder, did they ever really care? Or were you just used? The Stoics taught that pain is not in the event itself, but in our judgment of it. You're not weak for feeling betrayed. You're not foolish for hoping. But there is a strength in the reckoning. There is wisdom in seeing the truth, even if it arrives dressed as heartbreak. And perhaps this wasn't a love lost. Perhaps it was an illusion exposed. Part 1. The avoidant partner, the chase. That never ends. Avoidant partners crave intimacy until they get it. They often enter your life fast and intensely, love-bombing, future-faking, whispering words that seem to promise permanence. But as closeness grows, so does their discomfort. They recoil from connection, not because of you, but because connection threatens their carefully guarded autonomy. They fear engulfment. They fear vulnerability. They've likely spent a lifetime learning that closeness equals pain, so they pull away, just when you think you're safe to lean in. To love someone with an avoidant attachment style is to experience the cruelty of mixed signals. I want you on Monday. I need space by Friday. It's a chase with no finish line, and it slowly erodes your self-worth. But as Epictetus said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Their emotional distance, beyond your control. Their inner wounds, not your responsibility. Your need to be seen, heard, and consistently valued, absolutely valid. Part 2. The story we tell ourselves. We don't just mourn the person. We mourn the story. You believed in what you had, believed that love, patience, or your consistency could reach them. That maybe if you were calmer, less emotional, less needy, they'd feel safe enough to stay. This is where the real suffering begins, not from the breakup, but from the self-abandonment you endured while trying to be easy to love. Marcus Aurelius warned us, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If you constantly think you are the problem, you begin to live as though that were true. You weren't too much. You were simply more than they were willing to receive. And that's not on you. Part 3. You were not used. You were awakened. Here's the difficult truth. Avoidant people often aren't malicious. They're scared, conflicted, torn between the need for love and the fear of it. But that doesn't make the damage they cause any less real. Sometimes they draw you in for comfort, validation, or ego. Other times, they simply need to feel desired without the risk of being truly known. You weren't used. You were shown what happens when you love without reciprocity. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." You imagined a version of them that never quite existed. The potential you saw wasn't a lie. It just wasn't theirs to fulfill. Part 4. The silence is also communication. Their silence? That was their answer. Their avoidance, a confession without words. When someone ghosts you, breadcrumb texts you, shows up only when it's convenient, they are telling you who they are. The Stoics would say, don't be surprised by events. Anticipate them, accept them. You expected love and got confusion. You expected effort and got avoidance. You expected presence and got disappearance. You weren't blind, you were hopeful. And hope, when unchecked by reality, can turn into self-delusion. But now you see. Part 5. Why you stayed, the inner work. So why did you stay so long? Because part of you believed that if you could earn their love, it would prove your worth. Because inconsistency feels familiar when we've internalized uncertainty from childhood. Loving an avoidant partner often reactivates old wounds. It mimics the pain of early relationships where love was conditional. And when they finally pulled away for good, it felt like confirmation. I'm not enough. But here's the truth. You didn't stay because you were weak. You stayed because you were willing to love deeply. You stayed because you believed. Now the work is to believe in yourself just as fiercely. Part 6, From Suffering to Sovereignty. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. You estimated their capacity for love through your own. You projected your emotional availability onto them. That's not a crime. That's humanity. But sovereignty comes when we stop trying to decode their silence and start listening to our own wisdom. If a person consistently makes you feel anxious, unworthy, or confused, that is not love. That is a mirror. A mirror reflecting where you've been willing to trade clarity for crumbs, but not anymore." Part 7. The Real Closure. You don't need them to apologize. You don't need closure from their mouth. The real closure is deciding that your peace matters more than potential. The Stoics believed in action, not rumination. So act, release, unhook your worth from the outcome. You were not used. You were shown where your boundaries were too soft. You were reminded of your capacity to love, and you were returned to yourself. A Stoic heart breaks differently. A Stoic heart breaks, yes, but it doesn't stay broken. It reforms, learns, fortifies. You were not destroyed by this. You were dismantled so you could rebuild without the illusions. Seneca said, "As is a tale, so is life. Not how long it is, but how good it is what matters." So make the next chapter good. Not by hardening your heart, but by honoring it. Don't chase those who run from love. Stand still, heal, and let those who can meet you fully find you. Because you were never too much. You were just never meant to be small for someone else's comfort. And that's the Stoic truth.